Coming up today, the international community reacts positively to Korea and Japan's landmark agreement to irreversibly end their row over Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. The deal is not without its opponents, though. Critics say the wording allows Japan to shirk any legal responsibility, and civic groups have vowed to ensure the statue set up for the victim stays put in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul. Plus, choppy waters ahead for Korea's shipbuilders. Anchored down by eye-watering losses, a Chinese shipbuilder breaks Korea's top 5 global dominance for the first time ever. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Tuesday, the 29th of December. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. And we start with the latest on this week's landmark deal between Seoul and Tokyo. The agreement struck by Korea and Japan on Japan's sexual enslavement of Korean women before and during World War II is, as you'd expect, receiving a great amount of attention around the world and has been praised by the United States. Kwon So-ah starts us off.
The United States has applauded Korea and Japan, its two key Asian allies, for their landmark resolution. Secretary of State John Kerry said in a statement Monday the deal will, quote, promote healing and help to improve relations. U.S. National Security Advisor Susan Rice praised the two countries for reaching the agreement that, quote, addresses the tragic treatment, unquote, of sex slaves during World War II. The U.S., however, noted the issue is not completely settled for the women.
I'm aware, as we all are, that there are continued grievances, people who feel aggrieved, even with this agreement. That's really for the government of South Korea, working with its own citizens.
China has taken a more guarded stance, urging Japan to deal with its historical issues in a responsible way. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry said Beijing hopes improved bilateral ties between Korea and Japan can be conducive to regional peace and stability. He then repeated China's long-standing position, saying Japan's forced recruitment of so-called comfort women was a serious crime against humanity. Meanwhile, as part of the agreement, Seoul and Tokyo vowed to take a step back from denouncing each other in the international arena.
Under the premise that the Japanese government fully implements the agreement, the Korean government, along with that of Japan, will refrain from raising criticism or condemnation on the issue in the international community, such as the United Nations.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon welcomed Monday's deal too, but not everyone is happy with it. A civic group that represents the elderly survivors, the Korean Council for the Women Drafted for Military Sexual Slavery in Japan, criticized the deal, saying people actually need to unite to inform the international community about Japan's past wrongdoing. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Now, Monday's agreement was a significant step forward for the two countries, but there are still some major points of contention that need ironing out. Our Lee Soo-eun tells us more.
The agreement between Seoul and Tokyo on the issue of wartime sexual slavery has been called historic, landmark, breakthrough. But major points of contention remain, raising questions about whether the issue will be fully resolved. Under the agreement, Tokyo offered a formal apology to the elderly women survivors, saying the Japanese government, quote, feels responsible and promised to pay Seoul $8.3 million for the establishment of a foundation that will offer medical and other services to the women. Japan did not, however, specify whether its responsibility is moral or legal, nor did it say whether the funds offered are to be considered a form of compensation or reparations. Of the two, only reparations imply legal compensation for losses caused by illegal acts. Another sticking point is moving the statue of a young girl symbolizing the women who were forced to serve as sex slaves away from its current location across the Japanese embassy in Seoul. On Monday, Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se said Seoul would meet with related organizations to address Tokyo's demand to move the statue. Japan's Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida told Japanese reporters he understood that the statue would be moved. If that were to happen, it would likely draw objections in Korea, especially from the elderly women who have gathered around the statue for rallies every Wednesday for the past 24 years. 이수은, Arirang News.
Now, despite the controversy, the Korean government has begun the work of establishing a foundation that will support the former sex slaves in line with Monday's agreement. Government sources here in Seoul say the Foreign Ministry and the Ministry of Gender, Equality and Family have already begun working-level talks on the matter and aim to open the foundation early next year. Under the agreement reached on Monday, Seoul and Tokyo agreed to cooperate through the new institution to support the surviving victims both financially and emotionally, based on $8.3 million fund given by the Japanese government. The new foundation will provide medical and healthcare services for the elderly women. Now, in other news, Korean shipbuilders once dominated the global market, but times appear to be changing. Weighed down by enforced restructuring amid falling orders and massive losses, Chinese players are starting to make their presence felt within the industry's elite. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Are Korean shipbuilders' golden days almost over? For the first time ever, a Chinese shipyard has broken into the top 5 global players in terms of order backlog. According to UK-based Clarkson Research Services, Shanghai Waigaojiao Shipbuilding had an order backlog in November of just over 3 million compensated gross tons, an indicator of the level of shipbuilding output. That puts the Chinese company in 5th place. All of the top 5 positions have been held by Korean shipbuilders until now. Ranking first was Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering with 8.2 million CGTs, followed by Samsung Heavy Industries with just over 5 million. Korean shipbuilders have been engaging in belt-tightening measures after posting eye-watering losses in recent months, mainly brought on by delayed constructions and cancelled orders, as well as rising costs. Korea's so-called Big Three logged a combined loss of over $4 billion in the first half of the year. Even more concerning is that prospects aren't too bright for next year either. Analysts say Chinese shipyards are expected to catch up quickly thanks to Beijing's active support. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, small businesses in Seoul are gradually overcoming the fallout from the outbreak of Middle East respiratory syndrome that struck the nation earlier this year. But the outlook remains relatively dim. Still, according to a business survey index of 1,200 small firms gathered by Seoul City Credit, the BSI stood at 80.9 for the fourth quarter. That is actually up 5.5 points from the previous 3-month period. By industry, the index for information services, food and lodging, and the construction industry edged up, while the wholesale and retail and manufacturing sector recorded a drop. Despite the overall rise, an index value below 100 indicates an economic slowdown. Now, as the year comes to an end, hundreds of billions of membership points from Korea's mobile carriers are scheduled to expire. According to the telecommunication industry, membership points from the nation's big 3 telecom carriers, SK Telecom, KT and LGU+, have a 1-year expiry date and are reset on the first day of a new year. With these points, users can get huge discounts from various outlets, including restaurants, cinemas and amusement parks, but many find it hard to use up all of their points within the space of a year. In 2012, in fact, mobile users only used up about 40% of their points, which are given according to their membership level. Civic groups are pushing hard for a reform which would either increase both the number of outlets and discounts or allow users to pay their bills with the remaining points at the end of the year. A new 17-story complex specifically designed to support cultural startups has opened right here in downtown Seoul. President Park Geun-hye attended the opening ceremony of the Seoul Cell Center earlier on this Tuesday, explaining that Cell, CEL stands for Creative Economy Leader. The president said cultural contents can become a future growth engine for Korea. She pointed out that the sector creates twice as many jobs for young people than the traditional manufacturing sector. Now, the centre is part of the government's plans to complete a chain of cultural hubs, including a cultural academy, a cultural convergence centre and a K-pop performance hall. 93 startups will move into this building. The government will cover part or all of their rent, depending on how well they perform. Now, in international news, Iraqi government forces have retaken the western city of Ramadi from Islamic State militants. The country's prime minister says Iraq will eradicate ISIS next year, but experts are advising him against getting too carried away, considering the task at hand. Son Jong-in has the details.
After a week of heavy fighting, Iraqi security forces raised the national flag in celebration of their first major victory over the Islamic State group. The expulsion of ISIS militants from Ramadi is seen as a symbolic achievement for the Iraqi army after it suffered a humiliating defeat in May. The United States hopes the recapture will boost the army's morale and confidence in the fight against the extremist group.
We can commend, the government of Iraq and the brave Iraqi forces that have displayed such tremendous perseverance, as well as courage in the fight to return Ramadi, the capital of Anbar province, back to the Iraqi people.
The victory allows Iraqi and coalition forces to focus more attention on capturing the northern city of Mosul, which is by far the largest population center controlled by ISIS. If Iraqi forces can take and maintain control of the entire city, ISIS would suffer an even greater strategic defeat. Emboldened by the victory of Ramadi, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi vowed to free the whole country from ISIS within next year.
If 2015 was the year of liberation, 2016, God willing, will be the year of the great victory and the year of the final victory, and the end of the presence of ISIS on Iraqi soil, and their final great defeat.
But there's still a long way to go. Iraqi security forces still need to flush out pockets of insurgents holed up in Ramadi and its surroundings. And experts warn it could be another year before ground forces are ready to go into Mosul. Son Jong-in, Arirang News.
Now, staying in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia's budget deficit has soared to a staggering $98 billion this year as the world's biggest oil exporter struggles to cope with record low crude prices. The country's revenues reached $162 billion. That's down 15% on official expectations. While income was down, spending was 13% higher, than forecasts. The country's finance ministry says it will make up for the shortfall by cutting subsidies for fuel. Gasoline prices are expected to increase by up to 67%, although saying that they will remain low by global standards. Diesel, electricity and water prices will also rise. Now, Korea boasts a number of amazing winter festivals offering activities like ice fishing, sledding and other snow-related fun. But in recent weeks, a number have been either put on hold or cancelled altogether due to the unseasonably mild weather we've been having. Now, Oh Se-young has the details.
This winter, frosty winds have been chilling many to the bone. Even still, it's quite not cold enough in Korea to make for white snowy conditions.
Every winter, there's a huge festival here in northern Gyeonggi-do province, which brings in around 1 million visitors for a spot of ice fishing. But in the week of its grand opening, the organisers have cancelled the event because the ice isn't thick enough.
The ice on this lake needs to be around 25 centimeters thick, but right now it's only 2 to 3 centimeters. We initially postponed the event, but now we've cancelled it completely for the safety of our visitors.
This is happening all across the country. Weather experts say it's all due to the unusually warm temperatures that we're getting. In November, the average reading in Korea was 2.5 degrees higher than the historical baseline, and this month's average of 4.3 degrees Celsius is 2.2 degrees higher than normal.
Due to the El Nino weather phenomenon, warm, moist air from the tropical Western Pacific brought more rain to Korea in October. And in November and December, we saw particularly warmer temperatures.
El Nino occurs when waters in the eastern tropical Pacific Ocean rise half a degree or higher above the historical baseline temperature for 5 straight months, due to weakening trade winds blowing west. Affecting air pressure and atmospheric circulation, El Nino often causes tumultuous turns to weather around the world, resulting in the flooding we saw in Peru and the forest fires in Australia. This year, the weather phenomenon escalated to the 3rd strongest of its kind in 50 years, rising about 3 degrees above average in just the past 2 months. Most meteorologists believe it will last through the spring, and Korea will be affected accordingly, with above-seasonal temperatures predicted to linger through February, which altogether casts a dismal outlook for winter events lined up for the rest of the season. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching, and we'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Until then, goodbye.